I'm actually looking forward to that. I knew you talked about doing it, and then the other day, whenever you had said, and then I hadn't realized that it was actually this weekend. I was like,
Yeah,
okay. So
it's kind of came up fast, right?
I think that's actually a good, just what we can, just a nice little segue into. We'll keep it short though.
Go for it.
Um, that conversation about peaking methods and
Yes.
the importance of getting it right. And a phrase that I use with pretty much every client is, we can only peak with what you bring. So, like at the start of that week, if somebody isn't in perfect condition, going through that carb loading, trying to manipulate water, whether you're manipulating potassium, sodium, all those concepts, tend to not have a great impact on a physique that's not conditioned.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
as we, yeah, as we know, the more that you saturate with carbohydrates, if your condition isn't in, then you're going to lose any detail that you potentially have in the
Mm.
muscle. And then you can potentially just look like a little bit of a water balloon, because the skin thickness is going to be a little bit thicker in certain areas around the
Hmm.
glutes, even around the sides, the lower back, etc. So quite often a peak could actually just hurt the look more than it helps. So sometimes it's better to run a little bit flat. Whenever you're peeled to the absolute, so then we look at being peeled, 10 being the most peeled, 7 being still pretty peeled. If we imagine from 7, 8, 9, 10, for me, the leaner or more conditioned somebody is, the longer that they have been really conditioned, then probably the more important that protocol becomes. So maybe
Yeah,
even more
I agree with
elevation of
that.
carbohydrates. Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
100%.
if you're hyper conditioned and hyper detailed in your physique, you can trade off 10% of the lines or striations in favor of 20% more fullness, and that is a very good trade-off. So you have to kind of know what you're peaking. So that's why, if you're peaking the same athlete at consecutive shows, but each show they're more conditioned, then the protocol will most likely slightly change as you go through those phases. So what do you think about that?
No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, a few things I would say is this is semantics really more than anything, but I'm such a pedant because I'm a scientist, right? And we like to put things into boxes, right? And when we talk about peaking, peaking is just about producing the best look for a show. So that is ultimately what we mean by peaking. So if you do a strategy whereby you diet even harder for the whole week to come into that show, but you don't carb load, that's technically still a peak, yeah. So I get uncomfortable about terms and people say, well, peaking doesn't work or stuff like that, because often they mean carb loading or something like that. But it's just about, if you change the approach for the final week for the show to maximize look, then that is a peak. But I agree, yeah, I agree. If you're not in shape, then a carbohydrate loading strategy is probably not the way to go. Probably just that final week before, making sure that you're rested enough so that you don't look fatigued on stage. And if you can do anything that's just going to allow you to get tighter, then that's probably what you should be prioritizing, because the carb loading, as you say, isn't going to be necessarily that effective. In terms of that analogy that you're talking about being the 7, 8, 9, 10 of levels of conditioning, um, yes, as well, because you might lose 10 to 20% of your lines, and is that worth doing? Well, it depends on the individual, because what we're then talking about is looks, and what look suits you best. Maybe you are better just being a little bit fuller without those lines, and that helps your symmetry, or maybe you actually play the game which is be totally shredded. So you're talking about manipulating looks there, yeah, and that's a trade-off game that
Yeah.
you're playing at the end of the day. So yeah, I think we agree. Yeah, I think we agree. Um, where people kind of get it wrong. Oh gosh, I've written scientific papers on this, and go check it out. Peak week strategies of natural bodybuilders, where I surveyed almost 100 bodybuilders and the approaches that people utilize to get themselves in shape for competition. So what I'm going to just bring this paper up actually, because I can. Right, let's see. Let's bring this up on here just as a plug while we've got it on here. So here you go. Here's PubMed. Peak Week Strategies of Bodybuilders. So you can go and check that out, folks. You can read that in your own time. From there, I'll maybe pull out some data on here. Where people get it wrong is they make the peak week the first time they've ever practiced it. And they do mental things like, well, I've not eaten this all the way through my diet, and then in the final week they just put it in there. Like, oh, I'm going to eat pasta all this week. It's like, well, have you eaten any bread or any pasta or any wheat or anything like that for the months prior? No. So why are you trying it now?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to
One
start
of
to
the
include
yeah, one
dairy.
of the other things is whenever you get people the night before, you're talking about. I think you'll probably be in alignment with me. I
Yeah.
kind of like if I'm doing a peak week with somebody, I like the numbers, I like the analytics, I like the control of the variables. So it means
Yeah,
then if
because
you land the look, then you can, literally align maybe the next peak, something like
100%,
that.
yeah, you can
So
manipulate them.
right, so you get some coaches maybe the night before, and they're giving their telling their clients to go out, maybe drink a bottle of wine, have like go to McDonald's. This has actually happened
How many
very
calories do you
recently.
figure in a bottle of wine? 750 mil. I mean, fucking hell.
Yes. So you have well at least if somebody drank a bottle of wine, it'd be easy to track the calories. But if they're going to McDonald's and having a Big Mac and X amount of fries and this, that, whatever else, which this
Yeah.
person was also told to do, for me, those are variables that you can't really log that data. So you end up landing on the perfect look, but you're like going, what was it exactly that made that look that look? And for me, that's the issue that I have. And the same happens then on
I
show
agree.
day morning, where coaches are looking at their clients and going, "Oh, you look flat. I want you to go to McDonald's and get a some fries with some salt on it."
Yeah.
And again, I hate that because there's just too much looseness with it. Instead, if you were thinking sodium is maybe the cure for what I'm looking at, then you should already have that pre-planned. There should be
Yeah.
that person has access to other meals which are controlled that have X amount of sodium on it, so at least you can reciprocate and do those things, replicate those things, sorry, again and again if necessary. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about that? Coaches
100%.
giving the
I like,
McDonald's treatment.
I completely agree. Because otherwise you're a cowboy. You're a complete cowboy. How do you manipulate the variables? As you say, at
Yeah,
least if you've got 5 grams of salt with you and someone takes that 5 grams of salt and you get a good look, then the next week you can try 6 grams of salt, 7 grams of salt. You can
that's all it
manipulate
is.
that. I worked at McDonald's. I also worked in Pizza Hut, by the way,
Yeah.
and at a hot dog place. There's probably the joke right himself on that one, right? But
I thought you were more of like a wimpy kind of guy.
I didn't expect the joke to go down that route. I thought you were just going to make some sort of homophobic remark. Anyway,
No, sure, we did that in the last episode. So
yes, 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 of course. Of course. No, I completely agree. I completely agree. But try things out in the weeks that run up before.